Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls everywhere around the world, three disturbing true horror stories, animated. Let's get straight into it.
Hello, my name is Kian Redhead. I want to tell you a story
Redhead,
about something
really?
my foster brother Simon experienced a few years ago. I call him my brother because my sister and I were in foster care, and he was my sister's foster brother. This happened about 3 or 4 years ago when Simon was around 8 or 9 and I was 11. Simon, though somewhat fun, could also be a bit annoying. The rest of us playing were my sister Kiana, who was 10, and our older foster brother Gage, who was also 10. It was a weekend night near spring or summer in York Landing, Manitoba, in Canada, a very small reserve where we all lived. It was late, about 10 p.m., and it was raining. We decided to play manhunt. We all picked Simon to be it, and he gave us 30 seconds to run and hide. Since we all lived on a reserve, we had practically a whole forest, or a very large backyard, to hide in. I went to the backyard, heading close to the sandy pit where they kept gravel for construction. The rain had made the sand muddy. I went toward the bushes to hide, and Kiana was with me. Simon's perspective. Simon started searching and went down the trail that leads to the sandy pit. He took a left and started walking up the neighbor's path to loop back toward the houses. Then, he thought he saw me and Kiana walking together. He smiled and began following the figures, even though Kiana and I were already hidden. Simon stopped and dropped to the ground when one of the figures looked back at him, then took a sharp right into a forestry trail. He thought he heard us calling his name, so he backed away and went toward the house. My perspective. After a while, we hadn't heard from Simon, and no one had screamed. So Kiana and I went back to the house. Everyone was there, except Simon. After about 2 minutes of waiting, we all started to call out for him. We headed toward the neighbor's yard and found him walking toward us, crying. We hugged him and asked him what happened. He told us everything. We went and told the adults, but they didn't believe us. Simon said that he heard us call his name, and that's when he ducked to the ground and hid. He said the figure looked back when it heard us calling. I don't live there anymore, but Simon and Gage still do. Sometimes Kiana and I talk about it, and it gives me chills thinking about it. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if Simon had followed that figure into the trail. I think it could have been a skinwalker pretending to be me and Kiana to lure him away.
Yes.
This story happened during a camping trip in the fall of 2019. At the time, I was attending college in Portland, and I decided to head south with my friend Jason for the weekend. I followed Jason's lead, and when we arrived at the campground, it was incredibly quiet, secluded, and there wasn't a lot of traffic. As I was pitching my tent, I noticed a sign attached to a tree. It said, "Private property, no trespassing," and underneath it, it was written, "Violators will be," and the rest of the text was erased. And below that, someone had spray painted the word "die" in red.
Jason, look at this. That's funny.
I told Jason, laughing. Jason's
You're
face
stupid.
hardened
Yeah,
when
you're
he saw the sign.
Yeah,
He told me
he's
that we
smart.
might have to move camp somewhere else,
Please?
but I told him we would be fine. So we made a fire and joked
No, he actually has to be stupid. No, he wants to die.
around until we fell asleep. Sometime later, I woke up in the middle of the night to a rustling sound outside the tent. I immediately knew it was someone walking, stepping on branches. I woke Jason. He heard it too, and his expression turned terrified. He whispered, "What should we do?" At that moment, the tent's zipper suddenly unzipped, and
Oh
someone
my-
poked their head
What the
inside.
hell?
It was a
The
man.
predator.
He slowly smiled,
Yeah,
a
touch my
creepy,
dick.
unsettling smile.
Yeah.
His face was filthy, as if he hadn't
so
washed
sweaty.
in months. I could see his red eyes and rotted black teeth, but he didn't look like a simple homeless person. His face radiated an inexplicable, murderous aura. Then he said to us, "Haven't you seen the sign?" He put his hand into the tent, holding what looked like a large piece of bone. It looked like the bone of a large animal, long,
wild.
sharp,
No,
and
that's kinda
jagged,
thug,
as
yeah,
if
you're
it had
right.
been deliberately ground into
Straight
a
out,
point.
straight.
With Jason's thunderous scream, I instinctively shoved the man's face
Thank
away.
you.
He stumbled
That's what
backward,
I'm
and
trying
I
to do.
bolted out of the tent like a bullet. He was swinging the bone at me, and I kicked him hard and
Hell
yelled
yeah.
at Jason to start the car.
Thug
Jason
shit.
ran over, jumped in, and started it. I
that
sprinted
bitch over.
toward him, dove into the passenger seat, and we
Should've
tore
ran
out
away.
of there. We left our tent and belongings behind
Should've
and just
ran that
kept
bitch
driving.
over.
A few days later, when we returned, we were horrified. Our tent was covered in red spray paint with the word
Oh,
die,
shit.
and inside were two horribly mutilated animal carcasses. We couldn't even tell what kind of animals they were.
That's just-
We ran like crazy and never
That's a
went
waste
back.
of like
Who on
40,
earth was that
$60 of a
man?
tent.
The terror of that night still haunts me.
Chill. Story.
Maybe my
3.
story isn't really scary, but it was traumatic for a 9-year-old at the time.
Okay.
It was during the
traumatic
2020
9-year-old.
lockdown. We went on vacation since it was summer. My parents, me, my 2 older cousins, my aunt, her husband, and her 2 kids all went together. There were many of us. We stayed at a big resort. The resort looked like a 2 to 3 story high gray house. We got one big room that was enough for all of us. It had 2 or 3 bunk beds and one big bed for 2 or 3 people. And the first day was fine. The second night, someone began knocking on the door. My dad and my aunt's husband woke up first, then the rest of us started waking up one by one. We had already locked our door before going to sleep, so at first we didn't worry. But my aunt's husband bent down and looked under the door. There was a little space under it, so he checked. The knocking continued, but there was no shadow, no legs, nothing. We were scared, but it was late and I fell asleep quickly. The next night, the knocking came again. When I woke up, my mom,
I'm
dad,
so mad, bro. Chill.
aunt, and her husband
It's
were
not that
already awake
serious.
because of the noise. The knocking stopped for a second, and then something tried the doorknob, like it was trying to get inside.
Why did you
It
guys
was
leave the
locked,
door open?
and whatever was out there seemed to get angry. We were terrified,
Bro, there's
and then
like
it
50
stopped.
Of you guys.
A few minutes later, we heard stomping, loud stomping, like something big was walking right outside. Oh, and I almost forgot. My dad checked under the door again. Still no shadow, still no legs. After the noises faded, my dad stepped outside to check. My aunt's husband stayed inside watching the space under the door to see if
And
he
he
would see my
disappears.
dad's legs or shadow from the hallway.
His legs disappear.
His face changed instantly. He looked terrified because he saw my dad's legs and shadow clearly. Then my dad came back inside and we were all still scared. The next day, we packed up and left.
Thank
My mom
you.
and aunt asked a worker if maybe there had been a drunk guest wandering around. But he told them, "Oh, the other customers were all gone. Their dates expired. The only customers here were you." We were shocked. Since then, I've wondered, did someone try to break into that room and hide their legs so they couldn't be seen? Or was it something else that knocked on that door?
No, that was just Casper, bro. Leave him alone. Leave him alone, Casper.